Guys, I've got another banger for you. Imagine a world where there are only a few males left, and way more females. That would make men more valuable than diamonds. And because of that, their egos go through the roof, since women want them so badly. But there's one girl who absolutely hates men, because they act like they can get whatever they want just because they're rare. That mindset changes the moment she meets a guy who doesn't have an ego, and doesn't have women surrounding him either. He's simple, he's genuine, and he doesn't even know how to say no. And that's exactly why she becomes determined to protect him with everything she has, so he doesn't turn into one of those entitled, egotistical guys. Also, I'd really appreciate it if you could leave a like on this video, because it helps me out so much. Love you guys. It opens with our boy Masato, thinking to himself that at some point, everyone has wished they could be popular with the opposite sex. But before he can even finish that thought, he's suddenly interrupted by an older woman, who asks in a seductive tone if he wants to have some tea with her for a little while. Masato, still stuck in his own thoughts, realizes he never wanted to end up in a situation like this. He tells himself that no matter how many times he turns down their advances, they just never give up. And sure enough, she doesn't back off. Instead, she presses even further and asks for his number. With no energy left to fight it anymore, Masato finally gives in and hands it over. Just as Masato is about to give out his number, he's suddenly interrupted by a girl. We learn her name is Kumi, and without wasting a second, she pulls him away and forces him to head to class with her since it's about to start. As Kumi drags him away, Masato yells for her to wait a second, saying he was literally in the middle of giving his number to that older woman. But then he pauses, realizing that Kumi's way of pulling him out of there was kind of rude. The cougar smacks her lips in frustration, shooting them a scary glare as they leave. Kumi tells Masato that he can always just ignore people like that. But in a carefree tone, Masato admits that ignoring someone is harder than it sounds. Kumi immediately responds, saying that's only because he's too nice, and that it's exactly what makes him so troublesome. Masato can't help but think that's a weird thing to say to a college guy, but considering the world they live in, he understands what she means, and realizes she's probably right. We then get a flashback showing how Masato ended up in this situation. About a month ago, he was suddenly transported to a new world. At first, he didn't even notice, because everything looked so similar to the world he came from. But it didn't take long for him to realize something was seriously off. The world he's in now has an extremely skewed gender ratio. Masato doesn't understand why the difference is so huge, but he starts to suspect it might be because women here are far more assertive than normal. On top of that, there are even rumors spreading about introducing polygamy. And the moment Masato truly accepts that he's in an unfamiliar place, in a completely different world, he admits he was honestly terrified. Masato reflects on how he used to have friends at school, people he could laugh with over the dumbest, simplest things. And it wasn't until he lost that normal life that he finally realized how precious it really was. Feeling completely defeated, Masato thought he would have to give up on ever being ordinary again. But then he met someone who supported him like a guardian. He even made friends who helped him whenever he got into trouble. Masato admits he was thrown into this new world without any explanation, and he still doesn't understand why it happened. But even so, he's met truly kind people along the way. Just as he's lost in those thoughts, Kumi interrupts him, gently asking what's wrong. That interruption makes Masato finish his thought, realizing that, in a strange way, he's grateful for how skewed the gender ratio is. Because of it, someone as beautiful as Kumi is actually paying attention to him. In a cheerful mood, Masato thinks to himself how impossible that would have been back in his old life. Honestly, he knows he got ridiculously lucky. Masato then admits that it's because of the people in this world that he's been able to stay positive. With a cheerful spirit and his mind finally made up, Masato decides that he's going to live in this world he was transported to. Seeing him so genuinely happy, Kumi looks at him and gives a faint, quiet smile. Masato can't help but think to himself that he never realized how simple-minded he really was. Then we cut to another flashback. This time, we see Kumi walking to class, looking exhausted. She explains that she's tired because she stayed up late playing an online game, and there was one specific character that seriously annoyed her. As she tries to figure out what her first class for the day is going to be, she suddenly hears some gossip spreading around her. When she looks over to see where the noise is coming from, she spots two guys casually judging how cute she is. One of them remarks that she's about an 85. The other laughs and asks if she even barely makes the cut. Still joking around, they say they might even consider dating her, but only if she's the one who asks first. Hearing all of it, Kumi walks away in anger, questioning why men are always so arrogant. Kumi explains that, to her, men don't even make any real effort. They don't have anything particularly exceptional either, yet they still act like they're the ones in control. Even so, she knows she has the right to choose for herself. She says it's always been like this, men constantly believing they're the only ones who are special. And as those thoughts repeat in her head over and over again, she suddenly bumps into someone. Kumi quickly apologizes, and the guy calmly accepts it. He then asks if she's okay, and gently pats her on the head. This lover boy immediately tries to charm Kumi, asking if she just fell in love at first sight. Then he goes even further, saying that if she wants, he could make her his girlfriend. Hearing that only makes Kumi even more irritated. After everything that happened, Kumi finally makes it to class, and she's even more exhausted than before. Her friend notices right away and asks what's wrong, warning her that she won't even make it through 5th period if she stays like this. She then tells Kumi that with the way she's acting, she won't be popular at all, and if they really want the campus life they've always dreamed of, they need to push through. In an excited tone, her friend blurts out that the campus life they dream of is all about catching a handsome guy, but Kumi still isn't impressed or motivated by that idea at all. Instead, she keeps thinking that maybe she's the only one who isn't normal, because she doesn't see anything special about men. All she ever notices are those sharp, judging gazes they give. Before she can stay lost in her thoughts for too long, her friend interrupts again, asking who Kumi is aiming for in the club. Kumi doesn't really understand what her friend means at first. Seeing her confusion, her friend tells her not to look so lost, and asks again, does she have someone she's interested in? Kumi still can't give a clear answer. She quietly says that she doesn't think there's anyone right now. That response surprises her friend, who immediately brings up Kato-san and asks if he's handsome. In a defeated tone, Kumi vaguely replies, "Yeah, I guess." But deep down, she knows it's not that she doesn't want a boyfriend. She's just tired of always being the one in the position to be chosen. She starts thinking about what she really wants: someone kind, someone who treats women as equals, someone with a clean and respectable presence. And she can't help but wonder if a guy like that even exists. Before Kumi can stay in her thoughts for too long, her friend cuts in and belittles the idea, saying someone like that only exists in a fairy tale. But right after that, she starts praising Kumi instead, telling her she's super cute and surprisingly not that aggressive. She then warns Kumi that if she doesn't start going after more guys, she's going to end up single. Kumi quietly accepts what she's saying, but it leaves her wondering, is she really going to end up alone? Still stuck in her dilemma, Kumi understands that if she doesn't make any effort, then she definitely won't be chosen. But before she can think any further, her friend says goodbye and heads off. Kumi checks her phone and realizes her class has been canceled, which means she suddenly has extra free time. However, since no one else around her seems to be free, she considers joining another class instead, but she has no idea which one to take. As she walks around campus, Kumi spots a boy who looks stressed out. It immediately catches her attention, and she starts to wonder if anyone else is around. With all her thoughts about men still running through her head, Kumi tries to convince herself that someone else will help him. Part of her hesitates, because she knows how stressful it can be when people repay kindness with ingratitude. But even with that mindset, she can't ignore the feeling that leaving him alone would be wrong. And the more she looks at him, the more she realizes something about him feels different from the other guys she's met. In her thoughts, Kumi questions how she should even approach this troubled guy. And as she watches him, she notices that beyond his appearance, he almost seems to be shining from the inside. Gathering a little courage, she walks up to him. She isn't expecting anything in return, she's just curious. Kumi gently asks if, by any chance, he's trying to register for courses. The guy looks confused for a moment, then admits that, yes, he is. Masato explains that, for some reason, his enrollment process ended up getting delayed. Kumi can't help but feel a little flustered by the way he smiles at her, and she quietly wonders if men normally smile that naturally. Kumi tries to offer him some help, but the moment she speaks, she ends up stuttering. That instantly makes her panic, her mind racing with thoughts that he might think she's being weird or even creepy. But Masato simply responds with a cheerful smile, asking if it would really be okay for her to help him out. And somehow, that only leaves Kumi even more captivated. Still captivated by his smile, Kumi can't help but wonder why he isn't put off like the other guys she's spoken to. Masato continues, explaining that she's in the right department and the correct facility. But even while he's talking, Kumi's mind starts racing. She notices that he shifts to the side, making space for her on the bench, and she instantly begins overthinking it. She wonders if he's doing that because they're still talking, or if she's completely misunderstanding the situation. And if she sits down and he suddenly gets freaked out, she knows she'd be so embarrassed she might actually cry at her big age. Still, Kumi gathers her courage and nervously sits right next to him. Masato immediately notices and asks if something is wrong, but Kumi quickly responds just as nervously that nothing is wrong. After settling in, Kumi realizes that the two of them are actually in the same department and faculty. That makes Masato appreciate just how helpful it would be to get guidance from someone more experienced. Kumi quickly corrects him, explaining that she isn't a senior at all, she's a freshman too. Masato looks genuinely surprised by that. And of course, that reaction instantly makes Kumi spiral into her thoughts. She starts overthinking everything, wondering if he thinks she has ulterior motives or if she's being too bold for a freshman by offering help in the first place. But Masato simply stays pleasantly surprised, admitting he's glad she's a freshman too. Masato admits that he doesn't really have any friends in his year, so her help means a lot to him. He then introduces himself as Katasato Masato, before asking her what her name is. Hearing that, Kumi feels completely charmed by how kind and friendly Masato is, and how different he seems compared to the other guys she's met. She quickly composes herself, then gives him a small smile, and replies with her name being Igarashi Kumi, returning the pleasure of meeting him. That simple moment immediately makes Kumi self-conscious again, and she starts wondering if she smiled the right way. Masato then repeats her name, making sure he heard it correctly. As he looks over his schedule, Masato admits his frustration, saying he has no idea which classes he's supposed to take. Kumi can't help but notice just how empty his schedule is. And that's when a thought quietly crosses her mind. If they're in the same department, wouldn't it make sense for him to take the same classes as her? If he did, they'd end up seeing each other every day. But before she can get lost in that idea, Masato suddenly calls out to her, startling her completely. Kumi nervously suggests that maybe they could have the same schedule. She quickly explains almost too fast that some of the classes already had 2 sessions, and since she's already attending them, she could share the handouts with him. She tells herself it would be beneficial for him. But the moment the words leave her mouth, she starts panicking again. She wonders if the way she rambled sounded creepy, and if being stuck seeing the same girl every day would feel like torture for him. Masato begins to respond in a calm tone, starting with, "Could it be that..." And hearing that, Kumi immediately feels defeated, thinking she finally scared off the one guy who made her feel something special. But instead of rejecting her, Masato finishes his thought by asking if she's some kind of genius. That instantly catches Kumi off guard. Masato explains that her idea taking the same classes would actually help him a lot, but then he pauses and asks if she's really okay with it, and whether there's any benefit for her too. Kumi quickly replies that she has tons of benefits, and that it's totally fine. Masato then asks if he can see her schedule. Hearing that, Kumi can't help but wonder if this is really happening, or if it's just a convenient dream. After they finish sorting out their class schedules, Masato expresses his gratitude, thanking Kumi for helping him. Kumi responds humbly, telling him it was nothing. Masato then says he'll be heading home for now, since his student ID still hasn't arrived, and without it, attending classes would be pointless. Kumi replies in a cheerful tone, saying she'll see him later once he starts showing up to class. As she says it, Kumi can't help but realize she's never had this much fun just talking to a guy. But then Masato nervously rubs the back of his neck, clearly distressed, which makes Kumi ask what's wrong. Masato hesitates before admitting that he needs a favor from her. He just doesn't know how to say it. Then, summoning his courage, Masato gives her a small smile and asks if it would be alright, if they could be friends. Kumi freezes in surprise, her expression caught completely off guard. In that moment, she realizes something she never expected: the choice was always with the man, and she never imagined she'd be the one being chosen. Kumi responds enthusiastically, but with a calm demeanor, saying that she'd be happy to be his friend. Hearing that, Masato looks genuinely relieved. He thanks her, admitting that he didn't have a single friend until now, letting out a quiet sigh of relief. Masato thanks her again, telling Kumi that because of her, he's finally starting to look forward to university. After that, he says goodbye and heads off. Kumi stays behind, still lost in her thoughts, unable to fully understand what just happened. And just like that, Kumi starts spiraling in her thoughts again, confused, surprised, and asking herself what just happened. To her, Masato felt like a prince. He was exactly what she had imagined, from his personality to his appearance, even his vibe. And the more she thinks about it, the more she wants him. Not just a part of him either, she wants all of him. Damn. Completely bewitched by his charisma, Kumi quietly mutters his name. Then she stands up with confidence and determination, like she's just made him her #1 priority. The scene shifts to Masato and Kumi standing right next to each other. Kumi is glaring at him with a serious expression, while Masato stays completely oblivious. In her mind, she decides that if she doesn't keep an eye on him, other girls will flock to him instantly. And somehow, she even finds his cluelessness to be one of his best traits. Kumi asks Masato what's wrong, but he calmly replies that nothing is wrong. Then he suddenly asks her to hold out her hand. Kumi does it, but immediately starts questioning if the way she placed it was okay. Masato then drops a small piece of candy into her palm. Kumi hesitates for a second and asks what it is. Masato replies that it's just a small thank you for what she did earlier, helping him figure out his schedule and classes. Then, with a warm smile, he thanks her again. Still dazed by what he just did, Kumi quietly mutters that it was unfair. Masato immediately questions what she means, but Kumi brushes it off and quickly tells him they need to get going. The scene then shifts to another girl, busy playing some kind of sport. As she plays, she reflects on a certain guy, how he does the exact things she's always wished someone would do for her. And every now and then, he surprises her with small acts of kindness that make her genuinely happy. She admits that his kindness is what keeps her going, especially now that things have become so difficult for her. But even so, she quietly makes up her mind that one day, that she will definitely become this guy's girlfriend. The scene shifts to Masato being called by someone, reminding him that it's almost noon. Masato quickly responds that he's coming. As he gets ready to leave, he can't help but think about how he's still living in a parallel world. We then get a brief narration explaining his circumstances. Masato had already existed in this world before, and after graduating high school, he was preparing to start college. At first, being reincarnated left him feeling uneasy and unsure of everything. But now, he's managed to live a fairly normal life, and he credits that stability to the woman standing in the doorway, someone who seems to be his foster parent. After the greetings, the narrator explains that the woman is Sukuda Aika. It's revealed that right after Masato arrived in this world, she was the one who helped him. And ever since then, Masato has thought of her as a goddess, almost like a guardian in his life. The narration wraps up by explaining that Aika is married, but it seems like she and her husband are no longer together. Aika then notices that Masato has recently been showering before going to work, and she insists he doesn't need to go that far. Masato calmly explains that he's been exercising, getting sweaty, and that's why he always showers before heading out. Aika pauses, then asks in understanding if that's really the reason. After that, Aika asks how Masato's college life has been going, and whether he's made any friends yet. Masato is just about to answer, but Aika suddenly notices something suspicious and starts to panic. She warns him not to let any weird girls trick him, tells him to let her know if he's ever staying overnight somewhere, and even adds that he should stop using honorifics with her. The conversation ends with Masato cheerfully replying as he heads out, but Aika calls after him, still annoyed that he won't drop the honorifics. On his way, Masato comes to a conclusion in his mind, realizing that, in this world, people probably see him the same way they would see a reckless girl back in his original world. Masato finally arrives at his classroom, and as he settles in, he hears a faint whisper calling his name. When he looks over, he realizes it's Kumi. Masato walks over to Kumi and thanks her for saving him a seat. Kumi smiles and tells him it's no problem, adding that she'd always do that for him. Hearing that, Masato can't help but feel grateful that she's his friend. Kumi then playfully pinches him and suggests they grab a meal together as thanks for the seat. Masato looks surprised, and Kumi just giggles at his reaction. That instantly makes Masato blush. In his head, he starts questioning how someone can be that cute, and whether she actually likes him. He even realizes that with one simple gesture, he almost reverted straight back into full virgin mode. Masato then asks if they're planning to get the meal tonight, since he has a work shift. Kumi tilts her head and asks if his shift is always on Fridays. Masato thinks about it for a second and realizes he did work last Friday too. Still unsure, he replies that, yeah, it's like that sometimes. Kumi quickly reschedules, suggesting Monday instead, and asks if that works for him. Masato agrees, telling her that Monday is fine. Kumi reacts with pure excitement, practically lighting up on the spot. Masato can't help but think about how cute she's acting, and he even wonders if she's doing it on purpose. But in the end, he decides that because she's so adorable, he'll let it slide. Masato can't help but think about how cute Kumi is, and how naturally she takes care of others. She even helped him with his course registration, and stayed by his side in class afterward just to keep him company. He starts wondering if, in his original world, he would have never even been able to get close to someone like her. She seems like the type who'd be popular with both boys and girls. And if she has other friends, he's sure they'd want to take classes with her too. That thought makes Masato feel a little guilty, like he's been keeping her all to himself. So he finally asks Kumi if she's really okay with all of this. Kumi looks at him, confused by the question. Masato then asks Kumi if she'd rather be taking classes with her friends instead of him. Kumi pauses for a moment to think, then replies that it's not like that. She explains that she can always see her friends at the club or somewhere else later. But Masato still insists, telling her she should take classes with her friends too. He says he's already caught up with the class, and that he'll be fine on his own. Hearing this, Kumi responds with a void look and questions him. That response completely spooks Masato, and he starts wondering if he said something wrong. He notices that Kumi is smiling, but for some reason, it feels genuinely frightening. The scene shifts back to earlier, before Masato even arrived. Kumi walks into the classroom, looking around for him, and thinks to herself that she'll save him a seat when he gets there. She then sends him a text, and pauses for a second, wondering if it would be cringe to add a little heart. In the end, she decides to send it anyway, and as she looks at her phone, she realizes it's already been a month since she's been with Masato. She can't help but worry about how kind he is. He's too nice, so nice that he doesn't even put his guard up around girls, and she realizes that it was exactly that kindness that made her approach him in the first place. But then her thoughts turn darker. What if some terrible girl tries to trick him? The idea agitates her, and Kumi makes up her mind right then and there. She's going to protect him. Still lost in her thoughts, Kumi decides she'll stay by Masato's side for as long as she can during college. And one day, she'll finally get even closer to him and become his girlfriend. The more she thinks about it, the more she wants to protect him even outside of college. The idea makes her uncontrollably flustered, but she quickly plays it off, saying she was just kidding. Yeah, sure. We all know she's not kidding. Kumi then gets a text from Masato, thanking her along with a cute little cat emoji. She can't help but mutter to herself about how adorable it is. With determination on her face, she reaffirms her decision to protect him. But then, a new thought crosses her mind. Kumi starts wondering how they've spent so much time together, and asks herself if it isn't finally time for things to move forward. Masato arrives in the classroom, and she waves to him, signaling him over. But even as she smiles, she's still deep in her thoughts. She knows she wants Masato to be her boyfriend more than anything. And that's exactly why she can't afford to mess this up. Before she confesses, she needs to be sure he won't reject her. She tells herself she has to take it step by step. Then Kumi suddenly gets an idea, and her face turns bright red. Her mind starts racing with questions. What would he look like outside of school? What kind of food does he like? What hobbies is he into? And as she thinks about it more, she realizes just how little time they actually get together at school. Reading this manga had me dying of loneliness. I'm not even gonna lie, guys. But yeah, that's gonna be it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm about to go cry in a corner.